All right, today I wanted to talk to you about growing up. And this week on the show, the first week after lunch, we're going to be talking with none other than Chris Brogan. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. He's a big time name in the marketing space and probably the business space, but very excited to talk to Chris. And we're going to talk to him about growing up, parentheses, in life and business. And that's what we're going to be fearlessly questioning. And I want to talk to you today about two things as it relates to my time here with you, this one-on-one time that we have, which will be every week now. So every Tuesday, you and me one-on-one, and that's what's going to happen. You, me, one-on-one. We're going to talk. I'm going to talk about maybe the topic, maybe rant a little bit, and kind of go from there. So what I've been doing so far in these first episodes is kind of talking about the fearless question of the week and ranting a little bit on something else. I think I'm going to stick with that this week, and I'm going to talk about, my idea of growing up and why I wanted to fearlessly question it with Chris and some of my thoughts on it. And then I want to talk to you about something that kind of happened this past week about, I guess, an industry in general needing to grow up and revamp its business model. And you may have heard this thing about native advertising from John Oliver. I want to give you my take on that. Not that it means anything to anybody, but Joe Polizzi, the mastermind behind Content Marketing Institute, wrote a pretty nice piece on LinkedIn about the alternatives to native advertising. And I want to build off of that. But first, I want to talk to you about growing up and what made me want to talk about this with Chris and really just the whole reasoning behind it. And really it comes down to we were going somewhere, me and my wife, we had the kids in the car, and we were driving, and we were trying to decide what was going to happen for dinner plans. I think we were going to the store or something, and she had said that she wanted to take the kids to get ice cream after, and I'm not big on ice cream and anything sugary, but from time to time I do lose that battle. And she insinuated that she could eat ice cream for dinner if that were to be the case. And that really got me thinking, because whether it's in life or whether it's in your professional career, there's a lot that goes on that we can do now. We're adults, we have really nobody to listen to, and sometimes we forget or we just don't realize that we have taken too many liberties to where it's just become accepted and become accepted in a way that it is just commonplace across a culture of a company, across a culture of an industry. And it's become so common that we don't even know that it's happening anymore. And it really comes down to figuring out or remembering where we need to grow up and really do the things that we kind of thought were optional, but they really aren't. And they may be optional to some. I mean, this is a free country. You can do whatever you want. But ultimately, I mean, these are the things that are proven time and time again to produce results, bring upon success, and people just want to ignore them for whatever reason. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to do it, because if everyone did it, then everyone would be successful, and I doubt that's going to be a place that we live in anytime soon, but whatever. I guess the best examples are, one, just productivity in general. It's just we look for excuses and distractions and things like that at work, and we, try and fill our day with things that, we maybe aren't supposed to be doing, or maybe not the most productive or achieve the best results, and yet we continue to do them. I think I wrote somewhere leading up to this that, we continue to define insanity on a daily basis. And basically all that it is we do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. And we don't really take the time to either initiate or act upon the knowledge that we already have, or we bury our head in the sand and we don't look for the obvious answers that are, easily at our fingertips. And that kind of freaks me out, drives me nuts, and I just can't quite understand why it happens on such a rampant scale. And obviously another good example is fitness and nutrition and health. And I mean, maybe I just don't run in the most educated of circles, but I mean, I know a lot of my neighbors, a lot of my friends, a lot of my family members, they talk about things that are supposedly healthy, or, things that the media or the food companies have pitched to you as being healthy with just the overall knowledge of what actually is healthy, again, based on like real food facts stuff. Like, when are we actually going to grow up in a sense and figure out these things, whether it's for ourselves, or when are we actually just going to start to listen to the people that are trying to present us this information and really do the things that get the results, and not just talk about the things that get the results, or just pretend like we're doing the things that are supposed to get the results. And that, I think, ultimately is what I'm getting at when I talk about growing up in business and in life, and just over the overall frustrating just kind of view, the way that I kind of see some things happening. And I'm not truly doing the best job articulating it as I probably hope to do when I talk to Chris later this week on Thursday. And it's just some of my first initial thoughts on the whole thing, but we'll leave that. I'll kind of sit on that, let that kind of marinate for the next couple of days while I kind of think of some really good questions to kind of get that conversation going. But moving again into the business space and talking about an industry that really drives me just absolutely up a freaking wall, and that is the traditional media publishing space and how they view their business models. And it's all one, primarily advertising driven, and all we're seeing is the decrease in readership, blah blah blah. Everything's going down. They're making less and less money. More and more papers or publications are going out of business, and they just continue to define insanity on a daily basis, doing the same thing over again, writing the same stories, asking for the same amount of ad dollars, or maybe they're lowering their price, but they're still just asking for, hey, listen, we want advertising. We want you to pay money to put, an image with some words on it in front of the people that read our other words that are, what they're actually buying the paper for. I think, at least, I'm excited to move into a world where, you're, when you buy something, you're buying it for that thing. Obviously, the ad dollars are not, the advertisements are not what you're buying the paper for, or reading the paper or the information for, but yet that is what's funding the operation. And that seems a little backwards to me. But back to, I mentioned briefly in the introduction that Joe Polizzi, the guy behind Content Marketing Institute here in Cleveland, Ohio, my hometown. That's fantastic. I definitely want to get Joe on the show sometime. So if anybody listening knows Joe, want to get him on the show, I actually had the opportunity to meet him very briefly at Social Media Marketing World out in San Diego this past year. That was a good time. And he had kind of run down 9 different ways that newspapers make money. Number 1 being advertising, and there was a list of events and all this other stuff, and it really wasn't until he got to number 9, that was direct product sales, that he hit on something that he thinks is going to be the primary driving force moving forward. And I would agree. And anybody that has paid any attention in marketing and business these days, even read one word from Seth Godin, knows that you don't sell advertising anymore. You sell directly to your audience. And these publications that have gigantic audiences, I mean, they really just have to be throwing money down the drain, because what they could get directly from their audience, I would imagine, would be 10 times more valuable. What that exactly is and how they would actually go about it, I mean, obviously it could come in a lot of different ways. But one theory that I have, and this is kind of from a different argument that I would hopefully like to have at some point, but James Altucher did a fantastic podcast probably close to a month ago. I can't remember. I'll link up all these articles here if you head on over to fearlesslyquestioning.com/ this would be 6-1 as 6-1, and that is going to get you to the show notes, and you can go ahead and get that article from Joe, and I will go ahead and link up to all this other stuff that we're talking about. But and James's podcast, yeah, and what he kind of did in this podcast, it was titled "Why College is a Scam," and putting these two thoughts together, connecting these two dots, it's okay. You have these institutions, these universities, who are obviously not struggling for money, but the reason they're not struggling for money is that, again, they're people that are attending, they're mostly going on borrowed money. It's not their money. most of the time, and there's just this huge amount of debt that they're coming out with, students are coming out with after they graduate. That's a gigantic problem that sooner or later people are going to realize that you cannot possibly justify the cost for what they're providing in return. And when that does, there's going to be somebody ready to pick it up and run with it. At least I would imagine there would have to be. And coming back to this idea of, you sell directly to your audience. These universities are making money hand over fist, and it's ridiculous. So where am I getting with this is, imagine if the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times became the top two, journalism schools in the world, not even just the country. What if they dedicated themselves to teaching these kids how to write, how to be writers, and actually do it for a big time newspaper, not just from a school that, because there's a disconnect about, from, actually sitting in that classroom and learning about it from when you actually get into the real world and applying it. Again, if you listen to another one of James's podcasts, he talks about how he went to school to be a computer programmer, and then he ended up getting a job for HBO as a computer programmer, and basically had to go to a computer programming boot camp for them to teach him how to do the job. And these are basic skills that he did not learn in, I want to say it was 6 years, because he went to a master's program too, I believe. I could be wrong, but that he did not learn in 6 years, that he had to learn in like a summer how to do the job. And there's just a huge disconnect. So you have all of these different models, and this might sound a little scattered, and I might not be tying it together all that well, but you have all these different things that are not necessarily working right. I think the perfect storm is these companies that have these gigantic audiences that are struggling to make money, that don't sell a product directly. And they could come out with, different products of their own, and this could be split up into different categories. But ultimately, I'm just using journalism as an example. And to kind of run you some numbers, I read a survey or a study that there was around 17,000 journalism majors in the country just in 2010. Now, that's just in our country. In 2010. So let's just say that maybe the New York Times could capture 10% of that market. And let's say that they're going to charge them maybe $15,000. That's a little high. I don't know how this would break down, but that's, for that 10% of the market, that's 1,700 students at $15,000. That is about $25 million. I was also reading that, they make, hundreds of millions of dollars in ad revenue, but that's just one tiny segment of a small segment of the market. Just think of how many English majors there are and people that actually want to learn how to write. And I think, that number, those are just journalism students that are, 18 to 24 to 25. I would imagine that if the Wall Street Journal offered something, or the New York Times offered something that was relatively affordable, and it was going to provide you with, firsthand direct experience and knowledge on, writing for a major publication, that you would be getting people from all over the place, writers that are currently working for papers, paying for that service. Additionally, if they were to even split into different segments of business, finance, whatever, different sections, you could even have like a sports writing, segment on this, whatever different segments they wanted to produce this educational content for. I mean, let's just say I also, was just doing some just crunching some numbers to see if this was even realistically possible. And in 2010, again, there was 30.7 million students ages 18 to 24 in college. Now, again, that's just 18 to 24. Again, let's just say 10% of the market. It's probably a little high, but at 10% of the market, let's say they charged $5,000 or $10,000. I mean, you're talking in the neighborhood of, you're getting close to, some pretty serious revenue of, $300 million at that rate. And, this is just me spending literally an hour, running some numbers on some of the opportunities. I would imagine that you combine that with, some events and some of maybe their own direct products that they might launch or they could, offer. But I think, these places being a educational hub, I mean, because one, because the other thing that you have to keep in mind too is that they're going to have a whole slew of free labor. So I mean, they're going to have people that know how to do stuff the way that they do it, and they're going to be able to just run with their, they just have free labor, so they could cut their overhead. They could probably fire their entire advertising and sales department too. I don't know what those guys make, but I would imagine it's a pretty penny. And I mean, they would have to have some sort of marketing department to get the word out on these, educational courses that they're going through. But I mean, honestly, the publication itself would be a primary, would be the primary factor for that, would be driving those, those sales. That the audience is already there. It's already built in. They would just need to put a staff together, and I doubt it would need to be that big to activate it. Activating that audience to, again, go into these new educational courses. And I think it would be fascinating to see just how many people from all walks of life, from all ages, were to take part in this. And again, you could have different levels for people who actually wanted to come and stay in New York and come to the office. And then you could obviously have online and, different mentorships, opportunities. And there could be all sorts of different levels to this thing. Obviously, just a very, very kind of general idea. But the whole idea of this native advertising where, companies are now paying for content essentially to be published alongside of regular old news. I mean, it's just advertising, whether it's blatant or not. I mean, I think at this point in time, we should be looking for ways to move beyond it as much as it drives every, publication's business model. Like Joe says, I think, directly selling to your audience, like Seth Godin says. I'm not saying anything new here, but what I am saying is I think that there is an opportunity here in education. I would like to see who would be brave enough to try it out first. So that's all I got for you today. If any of that made sense, or if any of it is ridiculously crazy, I would love to know your thoughts. Again, feel free to get on over to fearlesslyquestioning.com for 6-1, and that's going to get you to the show page. Leave a comment. Shoot me an email, joey@fearlesslyquestioning.com. Be happy to talk with you. And of course, if you are catching this somewhere, please make sure to subscribe to iTunes and or Stitcher and leave us a rating, review, whatever. I've been telling everybody these first couple weeks, just go ahead and leave a fearless question over there. Let's see what happens. I don't want you to have to review something that you haven't spent enough time with. But these reviews and stuff, these ratings really help get us going, in the beginning, and really help get some momentum and get some, people actually paying attention to where this thing can be something legitimate for both you and I to really make something special happen. So that's all I got. I'm going to get out of here. Chris is going to be back tomorrow with his take on fearlessly questioning growing up, his little rant. Look forward to that. It's a good one. And then we're going to be back live with Chris at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. I hope to see you there. Again, everything will be linked up for this as well. So again, everybody, appreciate the time. I'm Joey Giangola. Take it easy.